The Calhoun County Chamber of Commerce, the Small Business Development Center at Jacksonville State University, and Calhoun County Emergency Management Agency are pleased to announce the launch of the Pandemic Ready program. This is a business continuity initiative aimed at enhancing the survival of small businesses in Calhoun County. My name is Jeff Ryan. I'm leading the COVID-19 task force at Jacksonville State University. As you all know, the threat of COVID-19 looms large over our nation, state, and community. The current situation is not just a public health emergency. Social distancing is very disruptive to our way of life and economy. We must do all we can to keep our businesses alive. Accordingly, we started the Pandemic Ready program to assist small businesses in the area. Business continuity planning and practices are essential to the survival of your business. COVID-19 is caused by a novel coronavirus. It's believed that the virus emerged in late 2019, but wasn't announced until January 2020. The virus that causes it has been named SARS-CoV-2. This emerging disease threat originated in Hubei province, China. Its reservoir is unknown. Globally, there have been more than 350,000 cases with more than 15,000 deaths. Those numbers represent the number of confirmed cases. It does not take into account the number of mild cases that occur where the infected person does not seek out medical care or get a COVID-19 diagnostic test. COVID-19 has spread rapidly. In less than 3 months, cases have been reported in more than 190 countries and territories. Much is still unknown about COVID-19. However, its primary means of transmission is believed to be human to human through respiratory droplets and contact with contaminated surfaces. So far, it looks like roughly 80% of the cases are mild. Those infected remain at home and get better on their own. Approximately 15% of case patients will be seen by a doctor and receive treatment to improve their condition. About 5% of patients will require hospitalization. Those most affected are the elderly and patients that have an underlying health condition. Globalization has us all the more connected. Population growth and migration patterns elevate the density of most communities, especially urban areas. Humans exploit their environment, which from time to time brings them into contact with emerging and re-emerging disease threats. I like to say that pandemics are slow-motion disasters. It's a slow-moving train. We can see the headlight in the distance, and the threat encroaches on us daily. The COVID-19 problem continues to spread as world public health agencies try their best to slow it down. Fortunately, we've had the foresight to see it coming and taken the time to prepare ourselves for it through comprehensive and collaborative planning, education, and changing our behavior as routines in such a way as to protect us from the threat. Businesses must do the same thing that government and communities do: plan and prepare. Just to get a sense of how quickly this emerging threat spread, let's look at the timeline of how COVID-19 has encroached on our community. Initial word on novel coronavirus came out of China on January 12th. The first U.S. case was on January 20th. This was due to an American citizen traveling back from China. JSU and our community began planning and preparedness activities in late January. The first cluster or hotspot of cases occurred in a nursing home in Seattle. It was discovered on February 29th. COVID-19 spread to all 50 states by mid-March. The first case in Alabama was announced on March 13th. In just 61 days, the problem went from China to Calhoun County. Pandemic planning and response uses the application of concepts. We are going to need creative strategies to reduce the burden of diseases without destroying our economy. Think time, distance, and shielding. Limit the time you spend in the company of others. Increase the distance between you and other people. Use forms of shielding to protect you from others. Shielding can be through personal protective equipment like gloves, masks, and eye protection. It can also be physical barriers like plexiglass or glass, much like you'd see at the movie theater or bank. To survive these restrictive measures and the threat of contagion, we are going to have to apply a tiered approach to social distancing. Consider measures like telework, work shifts, or alternate sites for getting the job done. We've already seen the cancellation of athletic events, concerts, and even religious congregation. But eventually we'll have to find a way to get back to work. This will come through creativity, innovation, and the use of technology. So now that we know that this is real, imagine how the near future will look. For me, I consider this situation from a medical point of view to be like a very, very bad flu season. Millions of cases, tens of thousands dead. Plan for varying degrees of disruption for 4 to 5 months. Strategically, we'd like you to pledge to be pandemic ready. Form a task force or team at work. Operationally, please review your business plan. Refine or create a continuity of operations plan, otherwise known as a COOP. Assess your needs, your capabilities, and shortfalls for this pandemic period we are in. With some forethought and teamwork, you can survive this. Some of you may even thrive during this period. In the workplace, you will need to employ social distancing. This is needed to protect your employees and your clients. Communicate often with your customers. Marketing your newfound status of pandemic ready should help.
My name is Cassie Chandler, and I'm a business advisor with the Alabama Small Business Development Center at Jacksonville State University. I'd like to talk to you about business continuity. I often talk to my clients about the importance of business planning, and a very critical part of that process is business continuity planning. This type of planning considers the means necessary to keep the business running during times of disaster or business interruption. This includes continuing operations, retaining customers, paying creditors, and upholding the reputation of the business. There are several steps to business continuity planning. First, the business should assess its functions, resources, and financial position. This includes determining the essential functions, which are the critical processes that must continue in order for the business to maintain operations. The business must also identify its revenue streams, consider all stakeholders, including employees, customers, suppliers, and investors, and take into account resources such as assets and facilities. Most importantly, a business should consider the risks and determine their potential impact on the business. Next, a business should mitigate these risks or take actions to limit their impact. This includes diversifying suppliers, having multiple revenue streams, backing up company and financial data, obtaining appropriate insurance coverage, and setting aside a cash reserve fund. This is important because working capital is crucial in the wake of a disaster or interruption. All of these efforts should be documented in a plan, the business continuity plan. It should also include procedures for communications, such as contact information for employees, suppliers, customers, financial institutions, and other important stakeholders. In addition, the plan should have procedures for emergency response and evacuation. It should also document a leadership structure during an emergency and how responsibilities will be delegated. Finally, the plan should include any manual workarounds to support essential functions, as well as plans for IT recovery and relocation in case these become necessary. In order for the plan to remain relevant and effective, it must be tested. Employees should have knowledge of the plans and receive training in the areas for which they will be responsible during an emergency. Exercises and drills should be performed to test the plan. The results of these exercises should be documented afterward. The business will be able to determine things that went well and things that need to be improved. The plan should be updated with any necessary revisions after exercises and drills. It should be reviewed regularly to ensure that the information is accurate. In order to properly assess risks, a business should determine potential hazards. This step is called hazard identification. Hazards are events such as natural disasters, fires, or power outages. Currently, the hazard that we're facing daily is a pandemic disease, COVID-19. Once the individual hazards are identified, both the probability and magnitude are determined for each hazard, how likely the hazard is to occur, and if so, how great its potential impact. The next step is to determine which assets are at risk, the vulnerability assessment. All assets should be considered. This includes the people, places, and things that make up the business, as well as the supply chain, IT, and even the reputation of the business. The final step is impact analysis, determining the possible impacts on the business. Potential impacts include casualties, property damage, and financial loss, among many others. As time passes and the business changes, risks change too. This is why it's important to maintain and update the plan regularly. It's helpful to get employees involved. They can collaborate in the planning process and have some ownership in the plan. Because employees and suppliers can change, it's important to make sure that current contact information is updated and verified. Regularly conduct continuity training and exercises, and remember that the plan is a living document. It's not written to be stored in a binder on a shelf. Taking business continuity planning one step further, we have business continuity management. This is the process of keeping the business actively engaged in the continuity mindset. Employees should be trained to embrace a culture of preparedness. Proper business continuity management allows the stakeholders of a business to achieve a constant state of readiness to endure challenges and uncertainty.
My name is Michael Barton. I'm the Director of Calhoun County Emergency Management Agency. I'd like to let you know about Preparedness Partners. The purpose of Preparedness Partners is to provide a blueprint to help organizations prepare for their people and places in emergencies. By participating in our Preparedness Partners program, you get free resources and help, such as local situational awareness alerts and updates, checklists and information on how to prepare for various hazards, individualized guidance from local emergency management professionals, and physical signage and an electronic logo designated your organization as a preparedness partner. To become a Preparedness Partner participant with the Calhoun County EMA, your organization will go through 5 phases of readiness. First, you connect with us through registering on our website as a Preparedness Partner participant. Then, we will help you designate an emergency coordinator and team and begin creating plans for any hazard you may encounter, such as severe weather, hazardous materials incidents, active shooter threats, cybersecurity, and of course, public health emergencies and other common medical emergencies. And in case of a long-term hazard, we will help develop a business continuity plan. To prepare, we can set up walkthroughs with local public safety professionals such as law enforcement and the fire department. We can also help install equipment such as NOAA weather radios and designate locations for tornado warnings and evacuation routes. After sharing this with your employees or volunteers, we can schedule a time for an emergency manager to conduct drills for evaluation on a periodic basis. Here are a couple ways you can get involved. You can sign up to be a Preparedness Partner participant at calhounema.org/connect. You can also sign up for text alerts from the EMA by texting Calhoun EMA to 888-777. And all of our current information is shared via social media. We have accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can always call the office and speak with an emergency management officer at 256-435-0540.
We are
in this
Together.